Hi everyone, this is a short follow-up to the foot-powered scroll saw, and stay tuned to the end for a look at my new Marquetry studio as well. Quickly after I started using the saw, I noticed the need for a zero clearance insert to block small pieces of marquetry from falling through the table. I made a tiny insert, but it was a temporary fix and quickly came loose and started causing more problems than it solved. For a more long-term solution, I grabbed an offcut of a thick veneer and made a small piece of 3-layer plywood to fashion a new larger insert from. Just like in store-bought plywood, the grain direction alternates in the layers, so it doesn't want to split. After the glue had dried, I drew a square on the rough shape, added in the diagonals, and stabbed the center. That center now has to be drilled with a very tiny bit at a very specific angle. I'll go into the reason for this angle in my next video, which will document my first attempt at a marquetry picture. I drew an almost full circle centered on this hole, with a flat section for alignment, and then cut it out on the scroll saw with a coarse pinned blade. Next, I have to make a mortise in the table to accept the insert, and to locate it I threaded it onto the finer pinless blade that I'll use for marquetry, and put the saw back under tension. This allowed me to rotate the insert on its angled hole and find the way it wants to sit on the tilted table, to then scribe around it. With the scroll saw table removed from the saw, I chopped out this material, and I again followed the angle so that the insert will drop down into the cavity without bending the blade. Once I got down to within a millimeter or so of my final depth, I switched to my small router plane to flatten the floor of the mortise. MDF certainly isn't made for hand tools, and it's not pleasant to carve the paper-like texture, but with sharp edges it does go rather quickly. Jumping back to the insert for a moment, I had one last thing to do to it, and the only way I could come up with was this rotary tool. I wanted to make a conical relief cut from the underside to allow small tweaks to the blade angle. Carving this away with a knife would work too, but that wouldn't allow such an acute angle as I don't have a knife with such a narrow point. I then pressed in the insert and planed it flush with the table surface. The movement here is because I don't have my workbench at this place. I've only brought what I need for marquetry to better be able to focus on that aspect while I'm here. And that is it for this little project, so let's put the table back on the saw and try it out. I made a sandwich with a background, spacer, and foreground veneer just to simulate a real cut and see if the blade seems happy with the insert. If the angle or location of the hole were to be off, I imagine the combined friction of insert and workpiece would overheat and break the thin blade. But it seems to work very well, and I can now cut very tiny pieces of veneer without fear of them falling through the table. And finally, the promised look at my new space, or one of them to be precise. This is the Marquetry studio, separate from the joinery shop, which I'm still in the process of setting up. This absolute mess is my work table, where I tape up packets of veneer in preparation for sawing, and then assemble the pieces into motifs. Right next to that is the saw, and I shuttle back and forth between it and the table many times in a day. On the wall behind me as I work, I've got a couple of shelves for holding the veneers. This small press, which I've mounted on my saw bench, gets used for the glue-ups once all the pieces for a motif has been cut out, And lastly, I've got a stash of cardboard here as well, for making prototypes or mock-ups of furniture that the Marquetry images can be mounted on. I've finished one motif so far, and the video on that process is next to be edited. And after that, I'm thinking there will be a video about cardboard prototyping for furniture. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.